Yo, ladies and gentlemen, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know where to begin. I'm exhausted. No, actually, I'm drained. I'm drained. So, I'm drained because few minutes ago, as at the time of creating this video, a few minutes ago, there was a very tensioned scuffle between Faith and Imisi. These two were literally dragging a keg of kerosene, all right? For those of you that do not know what a kerosene is like fuel, right? But this time around, it is not for your car, it is for your stove for cooking. It's like cooking gas for a stove, yeah? So they were both dragging a keg of kerosene. Now, the unfortunate thing there is that just as it is typical of many fights in the house this season, we did not see it happen from the very get-go. So there's no clear picture of what exactly happened, but there were testimonies from some housemates that were gathered around Faith and Imisi right there close to the laundry area. And so this scuffle continued for a while, and it even continued inside the house at some point, but we're going to get there, right? So there was a lot going on, yeah? Faith, as usual, looked calm. Imisi, on the other hand, was threatening fire and brimstone. I'll beat you up, I'll do this, I'll do that. Maybe I should give us 5 minutes. You know, typical Imisi behavior. You know, she was going on. And then in the midst of it all, I tried as much as possible to pick what they were saying, you know, what they said had actually happened. Now, here are the things that I picked. From most of the housemates that were there as witnesses, they said that Faith poured kerosene all over the kitchen area. The new kitchen area now is the former laundry area. That's where the housemates cook now. So they said that Faith poured kerosene all over the place. He also poured kerosene on the grass. They also said that he was trying to pour out the kerosene that's inside the stove into the keg, that he was asking Tracy for assistance, that he was trying to stop Imisi from cooking whatever she was cooking. I also heard that, the stove was still on, the stove was still hot, right? The stove was still hot, so he was trying to pour out the kerosene. And the kerosene had spilled to the floor, that's to the carpet grass. You know the grass there in front of the laundry area, that the kerosene had poured all over the place. Now, of course, Imisi was going off and Faith, of course, was there. Now, I tried to catch one or two things that Faith was saying, because remember, Faith speaks softly and calmly. So in the midst of all the noise, you might not have caught what he was trying to say. But then I was able to catch what he was saying. So he was saying that Imisi knows why he put off the stove, that it was because she did not follow his instructions. Now, what was his instruction? There was an agreement on Monday evening when Big Brother had supplied the housemates with their weekly food supply. And the agreement was that they would cook food for the general house. That's the 3 chefs in charge of the kitchen will cook food for the general house first. And then individual people will come and, you know, cook whatever they wanted to cook. So priority for the house is the general house. And then individuals that say they want to cook their own food alone, they are next. We know that Imisi does not like joining the general house for food, right? So because of the issue that they had on Monday evening, Faith had insisted that if Imisi does not ask for permission and, you know, follow instructions, she was not going to eat. That had happened that day. But then again, I don't know if they had further conversations and they had reached other agreements, but what I was hearing was you knew what to do. The instruction was that you take instructions from the chefs in charge of the kitchen, but you did not. You went to the kitchen, you took whatever supplies or resources, ingredients you wanted, and you went to cook. Why did you not follow the instruction? That was Faith's own stance. That was what he was saying. But Imisi's voice and the voice of other housemates that were there was sort of overshadowing his own voice. Now, they were not paying attention to what he was saying. For them, whatever Imisi did, why did he pour kerosene on the floor? That the food Imisi was cooking, that it was meant for the other people who were not going to eat the ogbono soup that Big Soso and Kebobo had cooked. Big Soso and Kebobo had cooked ogbono soup and semo. I heard that that food was for 12 people. Then the rest of the house, they were left to figure out what they wanted to eat. Now, out of the 12 rest of the house, some people said they wanted to eat whatever Imisi was cooking. Now, I'm not sure if that was communicated to Faith. As I said, this whole thing just happened and the cameras was inside the house and then it panned out to the outside. So there was no beginning story at this point, except Big Brother decides to release an entire footage of the beginning of the whole matter. Yeah. So the likes of Mide, the likes of is it Bright, the likes of Kola, they were all out there and it seemed like everybody was, you know, attacking Faith. Why did you do this? Why did you pour the kerosene? Why did you put out the stove? And Faith kept on saying that she knows what she did. And Imisi was like, why would I take instructions from you? Why would I take instructions from you? Over my dead body, I would die before I take instructions from you. So that scuffle continued. And okay, Isabella too apparently was going to eat out of the food. So she too was shouting at Faith, oh, why did you pour kerosene? Did you know that it's all of us that are going to eat from the food? And Faith was saying, well, I was not told. The people in charge of the kitchen, they were not informed. She just went and took ingredients and whatnot. Now, that whole thing went on for a while. And in the midst of all of that, what I am not sure of is if Faith had been aware that there were actually a lot of people that were going to eat out of that food. There's a possibility that the reaction would have been different if Imisi had followed instructions to, you know, get permission from the kitchen chefs to get the quantity of ingredients that she would have needed to prepare that food. So there was a possibility that there was no communication, but obviously Imisi maintained that she was never ever going to take instructions from Faith. I leave it at that. Now, in that whole scuffle, there were some voices that were really as loud as Imisi's voice, and one of them was Jason J. Now, let's not forget that Jason J is still stewing from his battery issue with Faith from, I think, 2 evenings ago. Yes. As a matter of fact, during his diary session earlier today, he had brought up the matter with Big Brother and Big Brother had actually set him straight. Big Brother had set him straight. He had tried to quote the rule book. Big Brother has still set him straight. So the guy is still upset. He's still vindictive, you know. And for him, Faith is the worst head of house. And he doesn't like the guy, you know. So he had a lot to say. So he still carried that grudge. And so in that whole situation, there was a transfer of personal grudge, a transfer of aggression from Jason J to Faith. And Jason was really shouting at Faith, attacking Faith, not listening to anything at all that Faith was saying. Now, there was also Kola, of course, who was defending his friend and sister. And then there was Bright, who, of course, also had a lot to say. And so, guys, the whole thing went on, and it felt like some sort of gang up. I don't want to call it a gang up because, as I said, the cameras did not show us how this whole thing started from the very beginning. I am only basing this analysis on the word of mouth of everybody involved right there and then. Yeah. So Imisi was really going over the top. She called Isabella to give her chairs, stools, bench. She wants to sit down, and both of them are going to hold the keg of kerosene together for the longest time. And Faith was calm, was quiet, and Imisi kept on shouting, threatening fire and brimstone, insulting Faith, calling him a bastard. She called him all sorts of names. Everything that is demeaning and derogatory, she called. But then after a while of everybody talking, because Mide too was there, Mide too was Faith, you know, at some point it felt like she was going to be touching Faith. So the whole thing was slowly picking up momentum into violence. And that was when Big Brother had summoned the head of house, that is Faith, into the diary room. Faith was going to release his hand from the keg, but Imisi was still holding both his hand and the keg. But then he was able to free his hand. He went to the diary room. At that point in time, there were so many housemates that come out to come and find out what was going on. And obviously, because something had actually happened earlier today, everybody took Imisi's side. Everybody was blaming Faith. Everybody was dragging Faith. So Faith, as at this time, was still in the diary room. Now, let me just deviate a bit. Actually, what had happened earlier today is that, according to some of the housemates, what they had complained about during their diary session, they said they were taking a nap and then Faith had come to wake them up. They wanted to share sanitary papers or whatever I wanted to share. So they were all upset. They said Kocho had cried because he was so frustrated that he needed his beauty sleep. Why did Faith come and wake him up? Oh, couldn't he wait till later on? Was it so urgent to share these things? Why? So because of that, everybody had agreed that Faith is a bully, that they don't like him. He's a terrible head of house. He's not compassionate. He's not affectionate. So during their diary session, they had actually had a lot of opinions about Faith. I mean, some people kind of liked his style, but the rest, everybody, it's just tearing him down. It was that build up, right? In fact, just the general build-up, the fact that they don't like Faith's style of leadership because he is very, very strict. He's very, very forward. He's very, very direct. You know, he sticks to time and principles of how, when, and where things should be done. Everybody automatically is against Faith in this whole situation. Nobody wants to hear what exactly happened. For them, he poured kerosene. He's the villain in that story. So, Faith came out of the diary room a bit later, and he came out with a brief for a sponsor task. He had summoned the housemates into the house and they all came into the house, and he was sharing the ballot box where everybody would pick papers that would determine which group they all belonged to. And Imisi started again. In fact, whilst Faith was doing his job, the likes of Thelma, who had been talking since, was still talking and making statements. Imisi was still saying things and insulting Faith, calling him a bastard, calling him a bastard, calling him so many names and, you know, raining curses on him. So when it got to her turn for her to put her hand in the box and remove her own paper, she left her hand in there and said she's not removing her hand. She wants to be there. So there was another time wasting again. And Faith said, okay, fine, we have all day. We can do this all day. So she stayed there. Once again, she called Rude Boy. Oh, give me chair. I want to sit down. Rude Boy too, carry chair and gave to Imisi. And she sat down again. She put her hand inside the box. She refused to remove her hand from the box. So once again, that went on for another like 5-10 minutes, and other housemates were there and they were enjoying the whole thing and they were laughing. You know, a lot of them were saying a lot of things like, oh, Faith is rude, Faith is disrespectful, Faith is a bully, they were saying a lot of things. And then Big Brother summoned Imisi to the diary room and she left. The talks continued again. Now, I forgot to mention that in the garden, Bright Morgan was upset with Rude Boy. For him, when that whole scuffle was happening, why didn't Rude Boy join his voice and join in talking? Why did Rude Boy keep quiet? That, oh, after all, the other day, Imisi had cooked beans. Rude Boy was not supposed to be a part of the beans sharing, but he had had it last night and he had had it this morning. So now that Imisi was cooking food that some people would eat, why didn't he raise his voice and speak up against Faith? So Rude Boy was like, no, that he was calling his friend JCJ to leave that scenario so that just Imisi and Faith would handle the situation together so that it doesn't look like people are ganging up against anybody. That was what he meant. But Bright was not having it. For him, he was just going off and he almost resulted into another altercation between these two, but it did not lead to that because later on, they talked things out and Rude Boy explained his reasons why he did not want to insert himself in that whole situation. Who else? Joanna, Faith's friend. She was very upset with Faith. And so not to make it look like, you know, she was exempt from the whole house talking to Faith, you know, so it doesn't look like she's supporting bad thing. She had to call out Faith right there in the lounge. You know, there was Manson, there was Bright. So Manson too was saying, no, Faith used to be my friend though, but the way he woke us up this afternoon, I don't like it. I was even talking to him, he said I should leave him, So everybody is complaining about Faith. Now, Joanna's reprimanding of Faith kind of made sense because from what she said, listen, I don't care what your reasons were, but the fact that you reacted the way you did, now you sort of desecrated the cooking area. The whole laundry area is smelling of kerosene. Inside this house, there's a smell of kerosene as well. Like, it's really annoying at this point, you know. So no matter what happened, control yourself. You don't have to react the way you did. And Faith said, okay, that's a fair point. Yeah, I realized what I did, you know. So afterwards, Faith had gone to the laundry area and he started scrubbing that whole area. I mean, washing that whole kitchen area. I mean, the laundry area, scrubbing and washing and doing whatever. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you this for free. Frankly speaking, as much as Joanna had a point in what she said, I kind of felt bad for Faith, because as one who is a friend to Faith, being in the midst of that whole situation, and at least to some extent having a bit of an understanding of Faith and his situation with Imisi, one would have expected that a reasonable person would have waited for everything to simmer down and then maybe invite Faith for a conversation outside of the bashings from the entire house. But then the fact that she chose to, you know, declare her own anger towards him at that point in time, I felt like that was a very insensitive thing to have done. That was very insensitive, and it felt like she was only looking out for herself, you know, because she didn't want to come across as, oh, everybody is standing together as one against this one person and his actions. So if I don't query him in front of everybody, to look like I am an enabler, to look like I encourage whatever he's doing, you know. And I totally understand that own angle as well, because at the end of the day, everybody came by themselves to Big Brother's house. So you cannot expect a much more deeper level of loyalty from someone like Joanna, who only sees herself and is only looking out for herself. But anyways, there was still a lot of talks in the house, you know. Of course, everybody blaming Faith. And I even forgot to add that at the point where Imisi was still dragging the task box with Faith, there was this glaring look from Jason J, the way he was staring at Faith, like you could see so much hate, so much resentment in his eyes, like he wished he could beat up this guy. And guys, I was just, I'm like, anyways, push Jason J aside, push him aside. We'll have a proper conversation about him when I am making the video, or when I make the video of the diary sessions, because there was a lot of exciting things that were said. But anyways, back to that situation, ladies and gentlemen. As I mentioned before, because of these housemates' perception about Faith, because of the fact that they resent his leadership style, because of the fact that they do not like how strict he is. In fact, I put out a tweet about this whole thing, guys. I mean, just check out the tweet over here, or follow me on Twitter. That's the X app, to check out that particular tweet here. So because they resent his leadership style, because they are not used to discipline, they do not like instructions, they do not like authority. I mean, look at the way they even treat Big Brother. They do not respect authority. Even though Big Brother had even warned them, you know, on several occasions that the head of house is a representation of his authority, they don't care. I mean, till today, they still disrespect Big Brother. So I did not expect anything less from them. I knew already that everybody was going to be against Faith. And let me put out this disclaimer. This is not me saying that it was good that Faith had spilled the kerosene on the carpet grass. No, that was over the top. That was an extreme reaction. And this is why I'm saying that I really wished that the camera had shown us everything from the very beginning. But ladies and gentlemen, if you've been following this show back to back, or if you haven't, if you've been following my analysis of the entire situation, by now you would have at least gotten an idea of where this issue is stemming from. Now, I'm going to reiterate, and this is not speculation, this is fact. This part I'm about to explain is fact, right? Now, we know that Faith and Imisi, they've been having these issues back to back from 4 weeks ago, right? We know that Imisi has promised to make Faith's life a living hell in that house. That is a fact. We also know that on Monday, when Faith won the head of house, Imisi was upset, and she had made declarations that she's not even going to pay attention to him. She's not going to listen to him. In other words, whatever instructions that Faith issues as the head of house, she's not going to follow any of his instructions. She has already prepared herself, alongside some other housemates who resent Faith. She has already prepared herself to be insolent to be disrespectful and to disregard his authority. So every time Faith gives an instruction, Imisi does not follow his instruction. If everybody else is trying to do XYZ, Imisi is doing something else. On Monday, when Faith was, started his duties as head of house, remember the plate incident? Imisi ended up not washing that plate. Remember that it's resulted into a crazy back and forth between them, and she had threatened fire and brimstone, cursed him out, called him all sorts of names, and of course, very provocative gestures. But Faith had then thrown back at her that you will not eat in this house. You have to go through the kitchen chefs before anything happens, but you will not eat in this house. I assure you of that. Of course, whether I was serious or whether I was joking, I don't know. Both of them were angry. They had said things to each other. I did a video about it. Now, that tension between them has continued, even though they were in the same group yesterday for the terror task. Now, fast forward to today, Imisi still continued with resentment. It's like every morning Imisi wakes up this week that Faith is head of house. She wakes up with a new agenda to frustrate him, to frustrate his reign. And that is what she's been doing. So when I saw the whole scuffle happening between both of them in the laundry area, I mean, guys, I don't want to speculate and say, oh, Imisi is at fault or whatever. Which is why I am actually waiting for Faith's diary session. I think he's going to have his diary session tomorrow. Unfortunately, Imisi already had her own diary session today. I wish she was also having her own diary session tomorrow so that she could have her own, her own time to explain herself. And of course, I'm hoping at this point that Big Brother would have drilled her if she was lying or telling the truth, and likewise Faith. But unfortunately, between both of them, Faith is the one that is yet to have his diary session. And I think it's going to be the last, him being the head of house. So it is until tomorrow that I will be able to get the full story of how this whole thing started. But to the best of my knowledge, this is it. In that whole scuffle, Imisi kept on saying that it is over a dead body that she's going to receive instructions from Faith. That, she would die or whatever before she allows him to tell her what to do. Is he Big Brother? If you listen to all of those things that Imisi is saying, you will see a clear disregard for Faith's authority as head of house. And in my tweet, this is one thing I say, that it doesn't matter if a housemate is at loggerheads with the head of house. So long as the person is the head of house, it is your duty, your responsibility as a housemate to respect that person's authority. If the person gives instructions, you need to abide by those instructions. Because of course, it is to ensure that things run smoothly in the house. But Imisi blatantly refused to adhere to those instructions. So I don't know if that's the reason why she went ahead to take food ingredients without informing the head of house or the kitchen chefs that, oh, so and so number of people are involved in this food I'm cooking. I don't know. But guys, I don't want to jump into conclusions. So I'm just going to leave it there that before this scuffle happened, there's a history between these two people. And there's been a build-up from Monday. Aside the other previous issues that has happened between both of them, now that Faith is head of house, there's been a build-up from Imisi herself since Monday. And that's what she's been doing. And it's very obvious that she's aiming for something. Because even after the whole issue had died down, when Faith was sharing the ballot box for people to pick a group, she started the whole thing again. It's like she's actually seeking a particular type of reaction. And I must give it to her that she has actually gotten the result that she wants. Because now the whole house is actually behind her. They are on her side. Nobody wants to hear anything that Faith has to say. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave it here. I'm not taking any sides now. I'm not giving any judgment yet. I wait till Faith has a diary session tomorrow, or if Big Brother is going to address that whole situation. And if he does, I hope he is fair to the entire situation and not decide to treat one person better than the other person, probably because, anyways, for whatever reason. Go ahead, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll see you guys on my next video. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing evening. Bye.